Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming you guys. Welcome back. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today, I'm going to guide you in a meditation like I do each morning, but then we're going to explore the Eightfold Path. This is the path to enlightenment. In terms of getting to this mental state that we talked about yesterday, you would need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. You would need to revisit it multiple times because you're dialing this in closer and closer to your life and training your mind through this particular teaching. And everything the Buddha taught in one way or another is integrating into this and plugging into it. So I'm going to walk you guys through this over the course of the morning. We're going to take a mid-morning break, of course, and then we'll come back and finish it up. And then this afternoon, after lunch, I'm going to be teaching you the ins and outs of meditation, because by that point, you would have meditated 3 times with me, or you guys meditated last night since we changed the class a little bit. But you would have meditated at least 3 times by the time we get to that point. So now I can teach you guys about meditation. So if you'd like to join, I'm going to start with the chanting, and then I'll come in with the guidance afterwards. Then there'll be the quietness in between, and then we'll come out of that with some more chanting. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savakasangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rogavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Welcome. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to everyone online as well. You know, this is a really great day to come to the temple because you get an opportunity to learn the very core and central teaching of the Buddha, the Eightfold Path. This is what you would need to know in order to make your way to enlightenment. There's other things you would need to know besides this, but this is the core central teaching that everything plugs into. And remember, with the teachings of the Buddha, it's not anything to believe. You're learning, investigating, and examining his teachings. You're reflecting on them to verify if they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. So it's important that you listen with eager ears and that you ask questions, get clarification. The Buddha even teaches you this. He says that when you're learning his teachings, to listen with eager ears. You're actively listening. Because if you just sat back and you just kind of let the teachings roll over your head, you're not going to be able to make your way to enlightenment because you're not going to understand the teachings deeply enough to be able to implement them in your life and actually experience the real benefit. But by you getting involved into the teachings and really examining them and investigating them with eager ears, you're listening, and then you're reflecting on them to verify if they're true or they're false, and then you start practicing them. This is where you see the real results in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to walk you guys through this entire teaching, taking our time, helping you to see how to learn, reflect, and practice. I'm going to show you how to do this as part of his teachings. And then as we go, I'm going to be pausing at different times, opening up for questions. And as we do, you guys know we have the microphones here. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So first, just kind of a picture of the Eightfold Path and kind of how it's laid out. There's 8 individual factors. It starts with right view, and then it goes to right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. One of the ways you might think about this is like 8 individual dials. If you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would kind of tweak these 8 individual dials to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind is the same way. These are the 8 dials that the Buddha discovered that if you tweak each one of these, you'll get a better and better performing mind. So you would like to know what each one of these dials are. You're not mastering one before you move on to the other. You're actually tweaking all 8 of these dials simultaneously. It's organized into these 3 sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. The wisdom builds a foundation for you to help you understand to be able to understand what's happening within your own mind and how to cultivate your mind. Then you're going to learn about moral conduct, which is helping you see the cause and effect between the decisions that you make about how you interact in the world and what you experience coming back to you. Then you're going to learn about mental discipline, about how to hone the mind and train the mind so that way you can actually implement the moral conduct. You wouldn't be able to practice the moral conduct without the mental discipline. These aren't rules or commandments that you're going to see in the moral conduct, but instead wise decisions about how to interact with people. But you'll find it very challenging if you don't understand the mental discipline and you're not practicing that. So I'm going to walk you guys through this entire teaching. It starts with right view. Here's the words of the Buddha, because whenever you're studying the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to study with his original words. I know that sounds pretty obvious, and it's like, well, of course, what else would you do? But that's not so obvious for a lot of people. There's plenty of people in the world that consider what they're doing to be Buddhist, but they're not actually studying with the original words of the Buddha. Not just household practitioners, but even ordained practitioners. They're oftentimes not studying with his original teachings. So whenever you're interested in learning the teachings of the Buddha and developing your practice to be able to make your way to enlightenment, you would like to be studying with his original words. So that's what I'm using here for you, to be able to walk you through this so you can see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. So this is where he describes right view as part of the Eightfold Path. He says, in what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. So what he's doing here in the Eightfold Path is he's pointing to another teaching, and he's saying that is right view over there. He's pointing to a teaching called the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is the very first teaching that he would always share with each individual new student. When the new student would come to learn with him, he would actually teach the Four Noble Truths first. So what I've done here is underneath of this line, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths goes on beyond this, but I just put this top section so you could build the connection and the correlation between the Eightfold Path of right view in the Four Noble Truths, that you can see the connection between the two of these, that the Buddha's pointing to the Four Noble Truths. And now what I'm going to do, now that you have this confidence that yes, right view is the Four Noble Truths, I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths. I'm going to walk you through this in a way that you can learn, you can reflect, and then you can practice and see for yourself. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. We call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true, but you need to know they're true. And that's why you're not interested in believing any of these teachings. The Buddha is explaining to you the way the world is here in his teachings. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows rules and commandments, the world will become a better place. He's helping you to understand the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is and by cultivating that wisdom, now you can navigate the world more peacefully. Whereas if you don't understand the world around you that you live in, you'll struggle and have difficulties. So in this first universal truth, he's helping you to understand the way the world is, that the world is impermanent, that things are constantly changing. This is called the universal truth of impermanence, where he helps you to understand that conditioned objects, they arise, they change, and then they fade away. A conditioned object is something that is impermanent, that it arises, it changes, and it fades away. Everything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, these are all impermanent. They're constantly changing. Everything in the material world around us is all impermanent. It's a conditioned object. They arise, they change, and then they fade away. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. There's only two of these. There's enlightenment. Once you get to the enlightened mental state, it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, it doesn't fade away. It's a permanent mental state. And then the natural laws that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago, those natural laws haven't changed. It's the same natural laws. Now the books and people's memories and what people's thinking about his teachings, that's all a conditioned object. And those things have changed. They are impermanent. But the natural laws themselves that he was describing, those are exactly the same from 2,500 years ago. They are unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. But everything else that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, this is all impermanent. It's constantly changing. Okay, so this is the learning part. This is the intellectual part where I just shared some teachings with you. And I've shared that this is a universal truth. But you don't believe me. Don't believe anything that I say. Don't believe anything I write in books. Don't believe anything that anybody else says. You need to be able to see the truth for yourself. So now you move this into reflection and you think about it and you try to look through your own direct experience in the world whether this thing that I just shared is true or false. So here's how you do the reflection. I suggest you take something that you're familiar with, like this human body. You're very familiar with this. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning that it never changes, it's always the same, or is this body impermanent, meaning that it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body that you have, is it permanent or impermanent? What would you say? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and sperm came together, this body is constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We get wrinkles, pimples, moles, our hair grows, and that's changed. Then we cut it, and then it grows some more. We started out, we didn't have teeth when we first came into this world, and then teeth came, and then those fell out. That's changed. And then they came back in again, right? And then we started getting cavities. This is all constant change with the physical body, right? What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent, meaning you've had exactly the same people in your life, your entire life? Or would you say your relationships are impermanent, meaning people are constantly coming and going in and out of your life? What would you say? Are they permanent or impermanent? Relationships are impermanent, right? People are constantly coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. That's change, right? Some people's goes down, 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 down. That's change. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? So we could go on and on and on like this. And if that's what you need to do, you should do that because you need to independently verify this. These are building blocks that are going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. You need to be able to understand these. So when you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that's impermanence. When you look at the tree and you see green leaves in the tree and brown leaves on the ground, that's impermanence. That's change, right? You see that there were certain people here in the class yesterday. Now there's different people. Right? This is all change. Now you look at the wood planks on the floor of the temple. Some of them are longer. Some of them are shorter. Some of them are darker. Some of them are lighter. This is all change, right? You see constant change around you all the time. And this is something that you can independently verify by looking in the world around you because you're not interested in believing this. Because if this is a universal truth, you should be able to independently verify it on your own. So I've just shared that with you, okay? So now you need to be able to cultivate the wisdom to see the world around you is constantly changing. And this is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Then the second universal truth is called the universal truth of discontentedness. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, they might have used the word suffering here. I'm not using that word, and I'll explain to you why, but let me first teach you what this is so you can understand what the Buddha was teaching on this important topic. The original Pali Canon uses the word dukkha. This translates to the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. What the Buddha is doing is he's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences. It experiences three feelings: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. These are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you are then going to experience a feeling. So there's pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. These are very pleasant for you to experience, and they're based on some condition. Your boss walks into your office and says, hey, I'm going to give you a $100,000 a year raise. You're going to get more money in your paycheck next week. You might get really happy and excited about that. Or you look outside and you see it's sunny outside. You might get really happy or excited about that. That is a conditioned feeling. That based on some condition, the mind is now going to experience a feeling. Then you've got painful feelings. Painful feelings are things like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for you to experience. And once again, it's based on some condition. There needs to be some condition present in order for you to experience that. If you got really happy and excited when it was sunny outside, that means when it changed to rain or some other event, you might have experienced anger or frustration or irritation or annoyance, right? Or say your mom said she was going to come visit you and she's going to come make you some special recipe that you always enjoyed when you were a kid, and you got really excited about that. Well, then when she calls you the day before and says, hey, I've had a change of plans, I can't come, now you might get angry or frustrated or sad. Okay, so this is a conditioned feeling. The mind experiences painful feelings. Then you get neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here. Some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or let's just say like somebody you don't know came and sat close to you on public transportation and your body was touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe you're just kind of like unsatisfied or, uncomfortable in that situation, dissatisfied in that situation, right? That's neither painful nor pleasant. Okay, so these are all conditioned feelings. And this is what the unenlightened mind's experiencing, that based on some condition, it's going to experience this feeling. So an unenlightened being might wake up in the morning and they see it's sunny outside and get so happy and so excited. And be like, wow, I'm going to go hiking today. I'm going to call my friends. This is going to be so fun. I've been wanting to go on that hiking trail for a long time. And now they go take a shower and they come out and they see it's raining, and now they might be sad or frustrated, right? Because they base their happiness on the sun is not permanent. So that means their happiness is not permanent. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because you're experiencing conditioned feelings. Your mind is basing its feeling on some condition. And when that condition is no longer present, your happiness goes away, and now you're experiencing the anger or frustration, right? So if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, you'll be sad when it goes down here, right? These are called conditioned feelings. An enlightened being doesn't experience that. An enlightened being will wake up in the morning, they're already happy. And before they even saw it was sunny outside. And now when they see it's sunny outside, it's like, sweet, I'm going to call my friends. This is going to be great. We're going to go on a hike. This is going to be outstanding. And now you go take a shower. When you come out, you see it's raining. And it's like, oh, okay, well, it's raining. I guess I'm not going hiking today. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Or maybe I'll go to the mall, or maybe I'll call my friends and see if they'd like to come over, and maybe I'll make them some food and we can have a nice little dinner over here, right? So you'll be able to maintain your happiness. You'll be able to maintain your joy because it wasn't based on the sun. It wasn't conditional. An enlightened being is experiencing unconditioned happiness, that there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to experience happiness, right? So this is called discontent, discontented, and discontentedness. This is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, which is conditioned feelings. The mind is shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. So now you can independently verify this, right? Because you know your mind is currently unenlightened. So ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant? Are there any feelings that you've experienced in your life that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? And if that's the case, when we get to the question period, talk with me and then we'll discuss it and I will help you. Okay? So this is what the second universal truth is, helping you to understand what's going on in the unenlightened mind. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. I don't use the word suffering because it doesn't bring your mind to the full understanding of what it is that the Buddha was describing here. If you use the word suffering, it explains the pleasant feelings really well. Right? When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're frustrated, you might say that you're suffering, or you have guilt or shame or fear, stress, anxiety. You might actually say you're suffering in that situation. But if your boss came in and gave you $100,000 more per year and you got really excited, would you say you were suffering? Probably not, right? Or if that person you don't know came and sat next to you on the bus and your body was touching their body and you felt displeasure there, would you say you were suffering? Probably not, right? So this word suffering only explains 1/3, 33% of what the Buddha is talking about here. That means you'd be missing 66% of his teachings. And how could you actually get to enlightenment, get to the ultimate goal of his teachings, if you only understand 33% of his teachings? If you're missing 66% of his teachings, how could you ever get to his goal? So I encourage you to not think of this as suffering, even though you're going to see that in a lot of places in the world, but instead think about it as discontentedness, that the mind is discontent. It's unsteady. It's unstable. It's shaken up. Because you need to be able to see that these pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. The pleasant feelings are conditioned pleasant feelings, meaning the mind can only be happy if certain conditions are met. If my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if I have this kind of house, this kind of car, if my bank account has this much money, then I will be happy. Right? So your happiness is shrinking the more conditions that you place on top of this. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to get beyond that, where you can have unconditional happiness, unconditioned joy, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for there to be happiness and joy in the mind. And as long as you allow the mind to have conditional happiness, that means that it's going to end and you're going to end up in the painful feelings at some point. If you allow the mind to have temporary happiness, conditional happiness, the painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner. So if I got really happy and excited because I got a brand new job, even though I'm not in the workforce anymore and I wouldn't have a brand new job, but let's just say you got a brand new job and you got really happy and excited about that. It's the perfect job. It's the perfect title, the perfect company. The mission of the company is outstanding. Great salary, wonderful office. Everything's outstanding. The people working there are wonderful. If you got really excited about that, 3 years later, when they go out of business or they lay you off because they're having financial difficulties, you'll be angry. You'll be frustrated because you got conditional excitement with the fact that you have the job. And now when that job is there, you'll be happy and excited about it. But when you don't have that job anymore, you'll be angry or frustrated or sad. So you need to see the conditional pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. If you allow your mind to get temporary happiness, then you're going to not be able to experience the permanent happiness, the permanent joy. So you need to be willing to let go of the temporary happiness in order to get to the permanent joy, the permanent happiness that is unconditioned. So that's why we use the word discontentedness, because you need to be able to see all three of these feelings as part of the problem so that you can get to the actual unconditioned happiness where the mind can just always be bright, cheerful, glad, and uplifted. Okay, so this is the second universal truth. And I showed you how you can independently verify this. Okay, now we're going to be discussing the third universal truth. This is called non-self. I'm going to explain to you what this is, but first, let me explain to you what this is solving, because this is actually the solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. If you remember from yesterday, we were talking about the 10 fetters, the 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind. This is what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to eliminate. That's what's keeping you in the unenlightened state, is that the mind has these 10 individual pollutions, these 10 fetters, and he's teaching you how to uproot those and get those out of the mind, because that's where the enlightened mental state is experienced, when the mind is purified. So this universal truth of non-self is the solution to one of the fetters that the Buddha discovered. So let me explain the fetter in more detail, the problem, so then I can describe the solution. The problem that he describes is in the first fetter. It's called personal existence view. This is where the mind has the confusion and the misunderstanding, thinking that this body or this mind is you, where the mind is clinging to a self-image or a self-identity in your mind, thinking that this is who you are. And you can only be happy if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived by other people. So the mind is clinging, having this confusion, thinking that this is who you are, and now you can only be happy if people are perceiving you a certain way. So for example, if you've ever went to a social situation and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed by that, that's your personal existence view, because the mind's clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only be happy when you're being perceived that way. So if the clothes are clean, you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived, and you're happy and you're comfortable and you feel great. But when you got spaghetti sauce all over your clothing, you maybe feel like, they're going to think I'm a slob. And now you're having this personal existence view get triggered, and now you're embarrassed because you think that they're going to perceive you in a certain way that your mind doesn't agree with, and this is disagreeable to you, and now you feel embarrassed in that situation. If you've ever looked in the mirror and you have a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole, or you have a gray hair, you start losing your hair, and now you're shaken up by that, that's your personal existence view. If you've ever stood in front of your closet and you thought about, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? How do I want to appear to others? And now maybe you put on some clothes and you looked in the mirror and you're like, no, that's not it. And maybe you put on another set of clothes and you're like, no, that's not it. And you put on another set and you're like, okay, now I feel comfortable to go outside, right? When I was a kid, I used to get gel and mousse and I would run it through my hair, and I would stand there before going to school and I would try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I couldn't go outside until every little hair was in exactly the right spot. And sometimes I would do this so long, I would miss the school bus, right? So maybe you do things like this, or you have done things like this. This is your personal existence view associated with the body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Then you have your self-identity. This is usually based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. It can be any number of things. And now when you're clinging to that as your identity of who you think you are, you can only feel comfortable when you're being perceived in the way that you want to be perceived. So for example, if you've ever been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I'm a wife. And now when you guys were together, you had a certain amount of comfort in that, right? But then when you guys broke up and you were single, your mind didn't identify that way. And you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. The mind thought that that's going to solve this uncomfortableness that you feel by being single. Or say you've ever been in a restaurant and maybe two tables over, they say all Americans are lovely and kind and warm or gentle, or all Canadians or all Chinese people or all Lithuanians, all Mexicans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle, and you identify with that as who you are as a person. Now you'll feel really great. You'll feel really wonderful. But then it's only a matter of time that two tables over, somebody's going to say something degrading and disparaging about your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, something like this. And now you think they're talking about you. And now you're frustrated or angry because you're holding on to this identity of who you think you are as a person. Or say you've had a certain job or occupation, like I am a police officer. And now when you're doing that job, you feel really great. You feel really wonderful. But now let's just say 10, 15 years into your career, you get injured and you can't do that job anymore. Or maybe you get laid off or fired, or maybe you retire. And now you don't feel whole any longer because you're not doing the thing that you used to do, and you used to identify with that as who you are as a person. And now that you're not doing that anymore, your mind kind of feels lost and confused in the world. Sometimes people have this so badly, they go to their family in their home country and they're like, Mom, Dad, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. And they might even come to a place like Thailand to be able to find themselves. And now they travel all the way here and they spend time here for 6 months or a year. And they get to a point where they feel like, I've found myself. And they'll go back home to their home country. They're like, Mom and Dad, I found myself. I know who I am again. I feel so great. Well, they haven't actually found themselves. Because what the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of non-self is that there is no self. They might have found new hobbies, new activities, new friends, a new job, any of that kind of stuff. But as long as you cling to that, as you think that that's who you are, when all that stuff changes, you'll experience discontentedness because your mind is looking and grasping and trying to hold on to something as who you think you are as a person, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. I have a student one time that contacted me after COVID, and they said, David, I'm having all these problems after COVID, and I need your help to understand this. And I said, sure, what's going on? They said, well, when I used to go into restaurants, I used to just order my coffee, for example, and I would take 30 seconds to order my coffee. I'd give them the cash, they'd give me the money back, and then I'd get my coffee and I'd leave. And I was like, okay, no worries. And they said, well, ever since COVID, they have this contactless payment system. And when I go in and I place my order, I have to, tap my credit card, but they turn around this screen and it tells me, would you like to tip 15%, 20%, 25%? And I normally don't tip in these kinds of places because I just order my 30-second coffee and then I get my coffee and I go. There's nothing to tip about. And he's like, I want you to know, David, I am a great tipper. I am a really great tipper. But in these situations, I don't tip and I feel very uncomfortable and I don't understand. And he's like, David, I just want to reassure you, I am a great tipper. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the problem. You're having personal existence view, that you're identifying with I am a great tipper. And when you're tipping, you feel really great. You feel really comfortable. But when you're not tipping, you feel uncomfortable. And he's like, oh, I understand, right? So now he needed to train his mind to let go of that identity of I am a great tipper, understanding that sometimes he's going to tip and sometimes he's not. That is impermanence. But his mind had this craving to be identified and perceived as a great tipper. And when he wasn't being perceived that way, he had difficulties and struggles. He felt uncomfortable. So your mind can cling to any number of things of who you think you are as a person. Even if you've been maybe taught in the past that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. These are just choices and decisions that you used to make in the past. That doesn't define who you are today as a person. But oftentimes people adopt this identity of who they think they are, even based on their choices and decisions, where true reality is this being used to use drugs and alcohol in the past, but that doesn't label me now and forever as I am an alcoholic or I am an addict, because that's where the guilt and the shame starts coming into the mind, where you can let that go and not adopt that as part of your identity and just realize that you used to make these choices in the past, but you no longer make those choices any longer, right? So the Buddha is helping you to get free of this clinging to the self-image of the body and clinging to the self-image of the mind. So now you can be peaceful and joyful at all times. If someone says something fond and wonderful about you, okay, great. And if they don't, that's fine too. Because it's only a matter of time before someone says to you, wow, you look so beautiful in that shirt. Wow, it really brings out the colors of your eyes. And you get so happy and excited. But then just wait a little while, because at some point someone's going to say, where did you get that haircut from? Are you going to go outside looking like that? Right? And now you're frustrated or irritated or annoyed, right? It's only a matter of time, right? So you need to be able to move past this. You need to realize non-self. And that's something that the Buddha teaches you as part of this practices that I'll get into in more detail another time. This is just introducing you to what the universal truth of non-self is. But in terms of how to eliminate it, that comes later when you learn some of the other teachings. Okay, so this is the intellectual part of the universal truth of non-self. But now let's move it into reflection so you can verify that it's true. Now, some people understand the intellectual part right away when I first start teaching it. Other times it's kind of hard for you because you've been accumulating this idea of a self your whole life, thinking that this body is you and that this mind is you. But even at this early stage, even if you don't understand it 100% right now, which is okay, you can still independently verify that there is no self. Here's how you do it. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about how you thought about yourself, your character, your personality. Has it been exactly the same through those 4 phases of your life, or has it been constantly changing? It's been changing, right? You haven't viewed yourself the same way. That's where you can see there's no permanent self. Here's another way. If your arm was cut off and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You are? You weigh, this body weighs less, but are you less of a person? What's that? Uh-huh. Mhm. Well, let's just boil it down and make it really simple. If you have an arm that's amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You say no. What about you guys? Say no. As a physical person, you think you're less of a person. Okay, that's fine. And what about you? You think you are less of a person. Okay, so this is personal existence view. Okay, so you're viewing this body as who you think you are. But if you can intellectually see that even though there's less body, there isn't less of a person, right? There's less use of a hand and arm, but the person is still a person. There's still a whole person here. This body doesn't define who you are as a person. If you can see that, then you can see that this body is not you. Whereas if you said that this body is you and there's less of a person here, then you're having personal existence view. But if you can see intellectually that this body is not you, then you can see that, yeah, there's no permanent self here. But the thing about personal existence view is there's confusion in the mind, where intellectually you can understand that this body is not you. But in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something either agreeable or disagreeable to you, your mind either gets pleasant feelings or painful feelings. Here's a third way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? Okay. Keisha's pointing there. You guys pointing there? That's common. Yeah, people will usually point here. Okay. So what you need to be able to do is look at what you're pointing at. You're pointing to a shirt. Ask yourself, is that who you are? This shirt that you've got on. Is this you? If we took off the shirt and we held it up and pointed to it, is that you? That's not you, right? Okay, so we throw it away. Where are you? And someone might point again. And then you've got skin that you're pointing to. Is that who you are, that skin that you've got? If we took off that skin and we held it up and pointed to it, is that you? That's not you, right? So we throw that away. Where are you? And somebody might point again. You've got ribs, you've got muscle tissue, you've got organs and fluid. None of these bits and pieces and parts are you. But the mind's going to try to cling to this stuff, thinking that this is who you are. So getting to the point where you realize non-self is to overcome this and no longer form the perception of yourself through all of these things. But that's what the mind's going to want to do in the unenlightened state, is cling to this stuff, thinking that this is who you are. Okay? So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on the three universal truths. Anything you guys would like to ask? Let me see if we have questions online. I don't see any questions online either. Okay. All right. So now there's one more building block that I need to share with you before we can talk about the Four Noble Truths. This is something called craving, desire, attachment, wants and expectations, holding, grasping, clinging. This is what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state, is that it's longing, yearning. It's chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind has. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes, and you were like, oh man, brand new pair of shoes, new phone, new video game, new jewelry, new shirt. Oh, I can't wait to get that. And your mind is longing, yearning for it, and you just can't wait to get it. That's your mind's craving, desire, attachment. It's not the object itself. It's the way the mind's longing, yearning for the object. Do you guys know what I'm talking about here? Have you noticed your mind pulling towards things? Wanting and longing, yearning for it. It's kind of like the mind's like, what do I need to feel better here? More money. That'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. And now you'll chase after that for a while. And then you're like, what do I need to feel better here? A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend. That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. And now the mind will chase after that for a while. And then you're like, what do I need to feel better? Let me go to Thailand. That'll fix everything. Let me go to Thailand. And now you'll be really excited to do that. But then ultimately, all of these things, you end up right back in the painful feelings again. Because if you get your money, you'll be happy temporarily. But then when it's gone, you'll be frustrated and annoyed. If you get your boyfriend or girlfriend, you'll be happy at the beginning. But then the relationship will end in discontentedness and frustration and agitation. When you come to Thailand, you'll be so excited when you get here. They've got mango and sticky rice. They've got massages. They've got elephants to play with. They've got all this stuff. But then when you have to go home, you'll be frustrated and annoyed, right? So the mind is having this craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning, thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases. Okay, so now we can talk about the Four Noble Truths, that you understand this. Okay, so in four simple statements, you're going to understand the problem that the Buddha discovered, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And remember, you're independently verifying this. This is where you can have a breakthrough, where you understand what's causing your anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings. So the first noble truth is explaining the problem. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. Their mind's going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before the mind is shaken up, right? Then it's happy and excited. Then it's angry and frustrated. Then it's embarrassed and shy. But then it's excited about something. It's enthused. It's got all this excitement in the mind. It's so happy. But then it's feeling stressed and anxiety. It's only a matter of time before the mind experiences these things, right? It's irritated. It's annoyed. It's frustrated. There's some peace and joy here and there, but it's only a matter of time before something happens. Right? So this is the problem, that the mind is unsteady, it's unstable, it's shaken up. The cause of that problem is in the second noble truth. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, I'm going to say that a few times and I'm going to give you some examples. Discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, the painful feelings, and the neither painful nor pleasant feelings is caused by craving, desire, attachment, that longing, that yearning, the wanting the objects of your affection, because the mind wants things to be permanent when everything in the world around you is impermanent. Okay, so think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. When you guys first got together, you were probably so happy, so excited, because your mind was getting what it wanted, what it expected. And you were getting these pleasant feelings like happiness and excitement. You were getting affection. You were getting to know a new person. They were calling you and checking in on you. They were sending you text messages, inviting you out to dinner, to the movies. Maybe you're going to the park, having nice walks in the park, having great conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact, having sex. This is all the things that usually happen towards the beginning of a relationship. And you get all these pleasant feelings. But then over time, the relationship started to deteriorate and you guys broke up. And when you broke up, you might have been angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed, or you might have been lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. It wasn't your love that was causing this. This was the mind craving permanence. You were holding on to the relationship, expecting it to be permanent, not realizing that ever since the beginning of this relationship, it was impermanent. It was going to come to an end at some point. It was only a matter of time. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, you guys were going to die at some point, and now the relationship's over. But if the mind's holding on and craving permanence, you'll really struggle in that situation where the relationship is over. You can see this if you've had someone close to you die, like grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, people like this. You weren't a bad person, so to speak, if you were grieving or sorrowful or sad during this period of time, but it wasn't your love that was causing the sadness and the grief. It was the craving for permanence, wanting this person to be permanent in your life, where as long as grandma and grandpa were alive, the mind was getting what it wanted and it was experiencing pleasant feelings. But when the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, the mind was experiencing this impermanence. It didn't like that, and now it experienced the grief or the sadness or sorrow. You can see this if you've been to a wedding, and people might be crying at a wedding, right? Mom and dad, brothers and sisters, here's this person going off into the world with someone else, and it's like, that's my brother, that's my sister. In their mind, the mind's thinking like, how dare you take them away from me, right? Because the mind's holding on, and it's being confronted with this impermanence. Maybe you've seen children get dropped off at school, or maybe you can remember getting dropped off at school when you were a little kid, or maybe when you were at university and you're getting dropped off at school. Your parents might have been crying, or you might have been crying, right? It wasn't the love that was doing that. Because, hey, your kid's going off into the world. They're getting an education. This is wonderful, right? It should be joyful. Hey, they're going off to school to get an education. But no, mom and dad are crying. The children are crying because the mind's holding on. It's craving permanence, right? So this is with relationships. But let me give you an example that doesn't involve relationships. Maybe you can see this a little bit more clearly. Think if you bought a brand new car, the perfect car, the car you've always wanted. You've been saving this money for a long time, putting the money under your mattress for 10 years, saving up all this money, right? And now you went down to the car dealership and you purchased this brand new car, so shiny, so beautiful. You're driving down the road, so proud of your new car. You park it at the store, you go inside, and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. And now you're angry or frustrated. It's not the scratch that's causing it. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the mind to be angry and frustrated is the craving for permanence. The mind's longing, yearning for this car to be permanently beautiful. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise here, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to get a scratch. It's only a matter of time. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. If your mind craves permanence, when you're experiencing these things, you'll be angry and frustrated. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is that the mind doesn't like impermanence, doesn't like change. If you look at your life, when you were having the most difficulties in your life, it's when things were changing. You were changing living locations. You were changing jobs. You were changing relationships. These were significant times in your life that were very difficult for you because the mind doesn't like change. It craves permanence. Even though you're the one that was making the decision for those changes to occur, your mind didn't like it. because it doesn't like change. It craves permanence. So you can have a breakthrough here to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because what the mind typically thinks with its lack of wisdom in the unenlightened state is that it's other people who are causing these feelings. The mind will think that it's something external. And when you think that it's other people that are causing these feelings and you don't understand it's your own cravings, desires, attachments, you'll become unskillful. You'll tend to push people away. This is called aversion, where you push away a person or you push away a situation. You might have pushed away friends or family out of your life, right? Pushing them away, thinking that's going to solve your problem. But you can see that that didn't solve your problem because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. If they were the true cause of your problem, when you push them away, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. But you can see that that's not the case. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear them into doing things your way. The mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll tend to put your expectations on people, trying to pressure them to do things your way. And people might be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're putting expectations on you and trying to pressure you to do things their way. So as long as you're doing this, you can't live harmoniously with all beings. It's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you because of the universal truth of impermanence. But the mind craves permanence. It wants everybody to do things this way. And if they do things this way, I like them. But if they don't do things that way, you'll have dislike towards them in your mind because the mind's craving this permanence. Okay? So you need to be able to see this for yourself, because what I just shared is the intellectual part of this to help you be able to understand it intellectually. But now you need to move it into reflection to be able to see it for yourself. So I encourage you right now to take a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated. You can think about it. It might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. At that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else for the feelings that you were experiencing, because that's what the mind typically does. But now look at it with these fresh eyes. What was it that you were longing, yearning for? What were you expecting? What were you wanting? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get it, you were angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. If you can see this, you can have a real breakthrough. You can have this breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. But you may not be able to see it. And if you can't see it, let me know, because I'll help you. I've had plenty of students over the years need help with this. I'll give you an example, maybe more than one, right? There's this one student one time that contacted me and they said, David, I need your help. And I said, okay, what's going on? They said, well, I know that you teach that it's my own mind that's causing these feelings, but I'm sure that it's my wife and I need your help. And I said, okay, what's going on? They said, I went to work the other day and my house looked really beautiful. It looked really nice. And when I came home, my wife had this craft project all over the house and I got angry and frustrated. Now, how did my mind cause that? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be angry and frustrated? And I said, no, it was your own mind, because your mind craved and wanted and expected the house to look exactly the same when you came home as when you went to work. Your mind was craving permanence, and this house can't look a certain way permanently. It is impossible. Right? So you need to be able to see that the mind's craving permanence. It's wanting things to be a certain way permanently. Now, I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag out fights and arguments with people where you've been adamantly trying to convince them that they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry and frustrated. But it wasn't them that was causing your anger and frustration. Every single time you've ever been angry and frustrated your entire life, it's always been your own mind that's causing it. It doesn't mean the other person was doing something wise. They could have been doing something unwise, but that wasn't what was causing your anger and frustration. It was the mind craving permanence and wanting things to be a certain way permanently. I'm going to sneeze in a minute. Maybe not. Okay. Here's another example. Think back to when we were children. You might have went to mom and dad and said, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they're like, sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. And we're like, thank you so much, Mommy and Daddy. I think you're the best Mommy and Daddy ever. You're giving me chocolate and ice cream. This is wonderful. And you're so happy and excited, right? And then the second day, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? Sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Thank you so much, Mommy and Daddy. You're the best Mommy and Daddy ever. Well, the third day came around and you said, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? No, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. We're so angry. You're the worst Mommy and Daddy ever, right? This wasn't mom and dad that was causing our anger and frustration. It was your own mind. You were craving that chocolate and ice cream, and you could only be happy if you got what you wanted. That's what the craving, desire, attachment is doing to you. You can only be happy if you get what you want. And the mind's throwing a temper tantrum like a 3-year-old kid when it doesn't get what it wants, right? So you need to be able to see this for yourself, because if you can have this breakthrough to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing it, the third noble truth is so empowering, because the third noble truth explains to you that you can eliminate your discontentedness by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. Because your mind is causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate it. That's the beauty. Whereas if it's everybody else who's causing these feelings, you can never eliminate it. You're going to be angry and frustrated the rest of your life, right? And that's no way to live life. You can actually evolve to this better and better human being that the Buddha is guiding you to be able to understand. So if you understand the cause is craving, desire, attachment, well, if you eliminate the cause, you will eliminate the effect. You will no longer experience discontentedness when you eliminate that craving, longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection. But when I say that, sometimes people say, well, if I do that, won't I swing all the way to the other side where I'll be dull and lethargic and complacent? Well, you might, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through wise decision making. So you can eliminate your craving for permanence and forming your feelings on whether you get this thing or not. And when you eliminate your craving for permanence, you eliminate your discontentedness. So you can independently verify this. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you broke up with. You were angry or frustrated for a while. You were lonely or bored or missing them for a while. But at some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to live in a different part of the world and she doesn't want to live here with me, okay, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and joy came back, right? But as long as you were holding on, your mind was experiencing discontentedness. So your mind needs to let go, but it doesn't know how to do that. That's where the fourth noble truth comes in. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to train your mind to let go and no longer form its feelings based on these impermanent situations, because right view is the foundation. You need to be able to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're having. As long as you blame other people for what you're experiencing, you can't fix it. There's nothing you can do. You can't fix it because it's everyone else that's causing the problem, right? But when you have right view, now you can fix it because you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So right view is to understand that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings. It's within your own mind. It's not the outside world. And now what I encourage you to do in order to practice right view is now and forever, whenever your mind is discontent, look inward and try to figure out, what am I craving here? What am I longing, yearning for? What am I wanting and expecting? What is my mind holding on to? Because if you can uncover that, now you can let it go and your mind can be peaceful and joyful. And if you do this enough with all the factors of the Eightfold Path, eventually you'll never get angry and frustrated anymore. It'll never arise. So for example, let's just say you show up at the airport and you're so excited to go to Thailand. You just can't wait to get to Thailand. And now when you show up to the airport to check in, the people at the ticket counter say, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your flight's delayed. You're going to have to wait 3 hours in order to check in because we can't check you in yet because your flight's delayed. And now you notice your anger is arising. Well, you can train your mind to let that go and understand that it's not the airline company that's causing you to be angry or frustrated. It's your mind craving permanence. I want every airplane to take off on time. That's what the mind thinks. Every airplane that you have that you're scheduled on, it wants it to take off on time. But the fact is that you live in an impermanent world. There's going to be maintenance issues. There's going to be crew issues. There's going to be weather issues. There's only a matter of time before your flight's delayed. It's going to happen. And sometimes your flights are even going to be canceled, right? So you need to understand that this is the impermanent nature of the world. It's normal. But if you're craving permanence, you'll sit in the waiting room for 3 hours and be angry and frustrated and hating the airline company. All the way on your airplane trip to the new city, you're angry and frustrated all the way until you get there. And then when you get there, you're probably still angry and frustrated, right? And it's just the mind craving permanence where you can understand, well, of course my flight is delayed. That is impermanence. That's the way the world works. And you can just be joyfully sitting there in the waiting area, going to get some food, relaxing, whatever it is that you're going to do. But if you have a craving for permanence, you can't do that. So you need to practice right view at all times in your day. Wherever you see your mind's angry and frustrated, just look inward and try to figure out what is the craving for permanence. When you start looking externally for what's causing your anger and frustration, you're looking in the wrong place and you'll never actually be able to fix it. But if you look inward, you'll actually be able to fix it. So I'm going to stop here and see what questions you guys have. Anything you guys would like to ask about the Four Noble Truths? No questions? Okay. I don't see any online either. So let's move into the second step, right intention. It doesn't take the same amount of time to teach each one of these. The first one, it takes a good amount of time because you really need to understand it. But I can teach you this next one. It's very straightforward. Here's the words of the Buddha. And what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So there's three things here that the Buddha is talking about: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Some people translate this as right thinking or right thought, because you're developing this intention or this thinking or this thought of renunciation. What renunciation is where you have the willingness to let go of your false ideas, your false beliefs, your false opinions, your false views, and your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that you have right now in the unenlightened state that you would like to eliminate. And that's going to help you to be able to get to enlightenment. But there's also certain false beliefs, opinions, and views that you have in your mind. There's a certain lack of wisdom that the mind has. And as long as you hold on to these false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, you'll never actually get to enlightenment. You need to be willing to renunciate that or let it go. So the very first false belief and opinion that you need to eliminate from your mind is that other people are causing you to be angry. You need to renunciate that. As long as you hold on to that, you're going to continue to get angry and frustrated and all these other discontent feelings. So you need to acknowledge that you don't currently have 100% wisdom about this world that you live in. As long as you think that your mind knows everything about the world, your mind's going to be closed off and you're going to be disinterested in listening to what other people have to share to be able to help you learn and grow and develop into a better and better human being. So you need to be willing to cultivate wisdom by eliminating your false beliefs, false opinions, and false views. So you're not bringing in new beliefs from the Buddha in order to get rid of your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. Someone convinced you to believe it, or you convince yourself to believe it. Instead, what you're doing is you're bringing in wisdom. And when you bring in wisdom and you see it conflicts with your beliefs, that's what you're choosing to eliminate, your beliefs. Right? So we've believed our entire life that other people were making us angry, that other people were making us frustrated and irritated and annoyed. And we need to see through wisdom of the Four Noble Truths, through our own independent verification, oh my gosh, that is a false belief. And now you need to be willing to renunciate that, having the intention to let that go. Then there's the intention of non-ill will. What this is this is a double negative. And whenever you see a double negative in English, it's a positive. So non-ill will is the same thing as saying goodwill. So you need to have the intention of goodwill, or you have goodwill towards all beings, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This is loving kindness, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill. The opposite of this would be animosity, bitterness, and resentment. If you have animosity, bitterness, and resentment towards others, then your mind isn't practicing the intention of non-ill will. You need to have the intention or the thinking or the thought of goodwill towards all beings. Then you need to practice the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you're causing harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. This is the cause and effect. So when I talk about causing harm, what I mean is causing harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. If you cause harm, this harm's coming back to you, because you can't cause someone else to be discontent. Just like no one can cause you to be discontent, it's your own mind causing yourself to be discontent. It's the same thing for other people. So if someone's blaming you for causing them to be angry, you can see through the Four Noble Truths, you didn't cause them to be angry. You didn't cause them to be frustrated. They're causing it themselves. But you can cause someone harm. You can't cause them to be discontent, but you can cause them harm. And if you cause them harm, they're going to want to cause harm back to you. That's the way the unenlightened mind works. So if you cause harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation, then harm is going to come back to you. It's only a matter of time. So you need the intention of harmlessness. Okay, so these are the 3 right intentions. So now I'll just summarize this and see if you guys have any questions. Right view is understanding the Four Noble Truths, that it's your own craving, desire, attachment that's causing these discontent feelings. It's your own mind that's causing this. It's not the outside world. So you're going to need to accept responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. That's practicing right view, understanding that it's all happening within inside your own mind, that it's impossible for someone to insert a feeling into your mind. It's just not possible. Then right intention or right thinking or right thought is to practice the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, keeping an open mind to bringing in wisdom. And when you see that wisdom conflicts with your beliefs, you're willing to let those go. And then you practice the intention of non-ill will, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, or loving kindness. And you have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Okay? Do you guys have any questions on this wisdom section of the Eightfold Path? No questions? You have a question? Yes, sir. If you could get a microphone, that way the people online will be able to hear you. Yeah. Either one. It's up to you.
Hello. So when we talk about the personal feeling, the craving to some sort of physical things or emotion or something, like I want to raise this question because when we let's take an example, like when I hurt my ankle, yeah, it's kind of like you can't avoid, right? Like when you will feel pain, you will feel the sort of unusual feeling, or like the painful feeling on your ankles. Then if it can be like thinking in a non-self, will I get rid of this feeling, or will I like relieve or things like that?
Okay, so let me help you understand this when it relates to physical pain. If you twist your ankle or you break your ankle, there's going to be physical pain, right? The body is experiencing physical pain. Then there's mental anguish that will go along with that as part of being unenlightened, because your mind is going to crave permanent comfort of the body. And when it's experiencing this discomfort of the physical body, now it's going to experience heightened physical pain, because now you're getting the mental pain to go along with it, because your mind is craving permanent comfort of the body. So it's like getting hit by two darts. You get hit with the first dart, which is the physical pain. And now when you experience the physical pain, the mind now gets the second dart, which is the mental anguish, the discontentedness, because you're craving permanent comfort of the body. And normally that heightens the physical pain because you're now getting that mental anguish. That's what you're experiencing in the unenlightened state. In the enlightened state, by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll still get hit with the first dart, because this body is impermanent. You're going to stump your toe sometimes. You're going to have something happen to this body, right? You'll get hit with the physical pain, but it'll be very minimal. It'll be very muted, because you're not going to get the second dart. You're not going to get the mental pain, because your mind doesn't have a craving for permanent comfort of the body. You understand that this body is impermanent and it's going to be uncomfortable sometimes. So you'll feel the physical pain, but you won't have any mental anguish. So the physical pain in the enlightened mental state is very minimal. It's very muted. Right? So that's the difference, and that's how it's occurring, is because it's a craving for permanent comfort. You still need the physical pain in the enlightened mental state to a certain degree, because as an enlightened being, if you were standing too close to a fire and you didn't feel that physical pain, you would just continue to stand there, and now your body would get damaged. Where by having just that little bit of physical pain, you'll be able to, oh, I'm standing too close to the fire, let me move. And now you can make a wiser decision. But you won't experience any mental anguish in that situation. In the unenlightened state, you'll experience the mental anguish, right? But you won't in the enlightened mental state. So it's only getting one dart, the physical pain, and it's very muted, very minimal. All right. I don't see any other questions. So what I'm going to do here is take a break. It's 20 minutes to 11. So I'm going to take a 20-minute break for you guys, and we'll come back at 11. And I'm going to continue on. I'm going to teach you the moral conduct and the mental discipline. We're going to walk through this so that you guys can learn this. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you guys at 11 o'clock. Okay? Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your interest to learn. Okay, guys, let's pick this up where we left off, which is we talked about right view and right intention. This forms the wisdom section. This is the foundation. And once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, the next thing is, well, all that harshness, all that bitterness and hostility that you're putting out, and you might think that that person deserves it. You can see that, oh, my mind's causing these feelings itself, and I need to improve this moral conduct. And the last thing I'm interested in doing is being bitter and harsh and hostile to people, because I'm just damaging my relationships. Where prior to understanding right view, we might feel justified in our conduct, thinking that that person deserves that. But now when you start to understand right view, the next part is the Buddha's helping you to understand the moral conduct, to improve that. Because as long as you continue to experience making unwise decisions through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood, it's just going to produce harm, and then harm's going to come back to you. So the Buddha is going to teach you this wise moral conduct for speech, actions, and livelihood. While it says here right speech, right action, and right livelihood, you might think about this as wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood. This is a better way to think about it, because what the Buddha is teaching you is he's teaching you the natural law of karma. Whenever you're learning moral conduct in a collection of teachings like this, sometimes people think of it as rules and commandments, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. Some people call this karma, but the original words of the Buddha are in the Pali language, so the word karma is what's being used there. And if this translated to just one English word, I would just use it because it'd be easier for everyone. But since it doesn't, I still need to use this word karma. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. Whenever you're making decisions about how to interact with people, it's producing certain results for you. And if you lack wisdom of this natural law, you'll tend to make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. That's why we were bitter and harsh and hostile in certain situations, because we didn't understand the natural law of karma, that as long as you're putting that out, that's what's going to come back to you. So you can learn through the teachings of the Buddha that it's unwise to be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you can see the wise moral conduct that is going to improve your relationships for you. Because oftentimes, like I said, we blame other people for the things that we're experiencing, and we might even blame other people for our own unwise moral conduct, where in reality it's our own decision to function that way. It's not other people causing us to function that way. It's our own mind making those choices, so we can make better choices. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you with the moral conduct section, is these wiser choices about our moral conduct. So I'm going to walk you through this because it's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. And however you make decisions, you're going to produce certain results. And the Buddha is going to help you to see this natural law as it relates to your speech, actions, and your livelihood. So here's speech. He says, and what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So remember, the Eightfold Path is designed to help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, that longing, yearning. All of these four types of speech are based in craving, desire, attachment. And it's going to produce unwholesome results if you make decisions in this way. So when we lie, if you can think back to when you were a child, you were lying about certain things. There was some craving that you had, some longing, yearning, and you felt like if you told the truth, you weren't going to get what you wanted. So the mind, the mind lied in order to get what it wanted. But then people discovered those lies, and then you had all kinds of difficulties in your relationships. So if you did a lot of lying, your personal and professional relationships would really struggle. And then if you do a lot of lying, you understand that your mind's kind of obsessively trying to figure out what you say to one person versus another versus another. And now people don't see you as being trustworthy and dependable, and your minds constantly have to figure out what you say to one person versus another, right? So the Buddha teaches you to eliminate lying because it's going to help you eliminate your craving, desire, attachments, your longing, your yearning. You can just tell the truth, and now you can be at ease and you can be peaceful because you're always telling the truth. Then there's refraining from slander. What slander is your gossip. You're degrading other people. You're talking in unkind ways about other people, damaging their reputation. So if you're gossiping and slandering, it's kind of like the mind has this craving to look good in front of other people, And the mind thinks that if I gossip and slander people, if I diminish this person, it's going to make me look better. But that's not the case. When you're gossiping and slandering, it actually makes yourself look bad. It's kind of like you're going into a dark room and everybody has a candle, and the mind thinks that, hey, if I put out everyone else's candle, my candle will shine brighter, right? But no, we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to be shining bright here, right? So you're not interested in gossiping and slandering. Remember, this is cause and effect. The Buddha is helping you to be able to see the cause and effect here, right? So if you gossip and slander people at the height of this, you can be murdered. That's why you see people that are doing like investigative reports on the news, and they might gossip and slander about somebody that's very rich and very powerful, and they end up dead. Right? I'm not explaining to you the way the world should be. I'm explaining to you the way the world is. That if you go out into the world and you gossip and slander people, you're causing harm to their reputation. They're going to want to cause you harm. At the very least, if you gossip and slander about people, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. It's only a matter of time that if you're gossiping and slandering with these people, they get used to gossiping and slandering. And when your back's turned and when you're away, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you because you got them used to gossiping and slandering. So if you're not interested in people gossiping and slandering about you, you're going to need to stop gossiping and slandering about other people. And this is going to actually help you to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, and have more harmonious relationships. Then there's harsh speech. This is based in your tone, tempo, and word choice. If you have a craving, desire, attachment, you'll be harsh and hostile and bitter towards people. Your tone, tempo, and word choice will be harsh and bitter. But if you can eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, you can speak gentle in all situations. Right? So you're going to need to pay attention to your tone, tempo, and word choice. And some of you guys speak more than one language. So you're going to need to look at all those different languages and modify the way that you're speaking right now. You're not interested in just conforming to what other people are doing. You would like to bring in the gentleness in your tone, tempo, and word choice. And this is going to help you to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment. It'll be the most challenging for you in the relationships where you're the closest to people. Your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, people like this. It'll be the most challenging for you because you have the deepest cravings in those relationships, the deepest attachments. But you can train your mind to let that go and get to the point where your mind's not doing that any longer, where you're speaking gently. And this is going to produce more wholesome results for you. Because when you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, you can look at those relationships. Those people are bitter and harsh and hostile to you too. It comes right back to you, right? But if you can be gentle and you can speak that way for an extended period of time, multiple months and years, you'll see more and more your relationships will clean up and you won't experience that bitterness and harshness in your day-to-day life. Then there's frivolous speech. What frivolous speech is like if you've ever been this type of person or you've ever been around this person where you're actually having a conversation where it's like yada 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 yada. It's like not really a conversation at all. It's really like they're broadcasting to you. And someone might be there like, oh my gosh, when is this person going to stop talking? Right? So if you experience this kind of thing where you're speaking with frivolous speech, eventually people are going to tune you out. They're going to be less and less interested in talking with you because they're not really having a conversation with you. They're just going to push you aside and you're not going to be very influential in your relationships. So you like to get to the point where you can have a conversation, where you can talk a certain amount and then you can create a space for the other person to talk, right? Because if you have a craving to talk, you'll just yada, 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 yada. You just talk continuously. So the Buddha is teaching you how to eliminate that so that now you can experience improved results in your relationships. So this is the top level of right speech, where you're eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. But then remember, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else plugs into. There's another teaching called the 5 Factors of Well-Spoken Speech that plugs into the Eightfold Path, which is a deeper teaching around speech. So here the Buddha teaches you to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the proper time, the first part of that is that you don't interrupt people. by interrupting people, there's a certain craving that you have there. Your mind's longing, yearning, and you just can't wait to jump in there and talk, and you're jumping in and talking over top of people. And you don't like it when people interrupt you. So if you go around doing that with a lot of situations, you're going to notice that it's not going to produce wholesome results for you. That's the cause and effect, that when you make decisions based in craving, where you're interrupting people, now people are going to be less and less interested in talking with you. The second part of speaking the proper time is to make sure that your mind's prepared to talk. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time to talk. And in situations where you've done that, you can see that it's just anger and hostility that comes out of your mind, comes out of your mouth, and now it damages your relationships. The third aspect of speaking the proper time is making sure that it's the proper time for the other person to talk. If they're angry and frustrated, it's not the proper time to talk. It's better to just step away from the conversation, let them calm down, and then a few hours, a few days, a week or two later, whatever it is, then you come back and have a conversation with them. This is actually going to produce better results for you. Because remember, you're trying to get to wholesome results. So here, the Buddha is teaching you to speak at the proper time. We already spoke about the speaking the truth. That one's up here, about eliminating lying. So not only are you not interested in telling a deliberate lie, but you're also not interested in spreading unfounded conspiracy theories and things like that. Whereas if somebody just told you something and you don't know whether it's true or false, you would be disinterested in going around and propagating that in the world without actually knowing whether it's true yourself, right? Because you would like to be a truth speaker, one to be relied on, dependable, not a deceiver of the world. You would like people to know that, hey, when this person talks, they speak the truth. And this is going to help you in your personal and professional relationships. Then we already spoke about speaking gently up here, eliminating the harsh speech, paying attention to your tone, tempo, and word choice, because you're going to need to speak in that way in order to eliminate your cravings. If you're speaking harsh and bitter and hostile, you still have craving, desire, attachment in your mind. So you need to speak gently, right? This is going to help you to be able to interact with others in a beneficial way. Then you would like to speak beneficially. Beneficially is ensuring that you're clear, concise, and precise in the way that you're speaking. If you're speaking clear, concise, and precise, people can understand what it is that you're talking about, and they don't have to work so hard to understand you. Whereas if you're rambling and chit-chat and having frivolous speech and all this kind of stuff, people are having to work really hard to understand what you have to say. They're going to be less and less interested in talking with you. So you like to speak beneficially, where you're clear, concise, and precise about the things that you're discussing. And then lastly, you'd like to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards others. The opposite of this would be inner hate. If you're speaking with inner hate, this is going to produce unwholesome results for you. So you would like to use all 5 of these 5 factors at all times. What we're describing here is talking to develop what's called barami. This is a Thai word. Barami means the one who people listen to. In each village in Thailand, there's typically some village elders who people know that these people are very wise and they're very successful in life. And if you need help, go talk to the village elders. And when I say they're successful in life, I don't necessarily mean monetarily successful. What I mean is they have harmonious relationships. That's what it means to be successful, because anybody can go make some money. That's really not that difficult, right? But to have harmonious relationships, that takes a lot of wisdom. So people in Thai villages, these elders who everybody knows successful, they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. And they're very influential in the community. And if people need advice or guidance, they will typically go to the village elders and ask for help because they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. So if you're interested in being helpful and influential in your personal and professional life, you're going to need to establish barami. You're going to need to be the one who people listen to. And the way that you do that is you speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and you do this at all times during your day. And now, over multiple months and years, more and more people realize that you're speaking in wise ways, and you're not causing harm through your speech. And now more and more people are going to be interested in spending time with you and seeking your advice and so forth and so on. So these are the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. It's going to help you to develop more harmonious relationships and establish parami. But remember, you're not interested in believing any of this stuff, right? You still would like to reflect. I just taught you the intellectual part of this, but reflect on this. Look at these 5 factors. Look at a recent conversation that didn't go so well for you, right? Maybe it ended abruptly and you guys were angry and frustrated at each other. You weren't speaking with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Even if you missed one of these, the conversation didn't go well. Either you or the other person wasn't speaking at the proper time, it wasn't true, it wasn't gentle, it wasn't beneficial, and it wasn't with a mind of loving kindness. And because you weren't practicing these natural laws, it produced unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. But then look on the flip side of this, because you can't just stop there with your independent verification. You need to look at it real thoroughly, look at it from different angles. Look at conversations that have gone well. You might have actually had some of those conversations at break time. You guys might have talked with each other, perhaps. You were speaking with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That's why those conversations have gone well. You were speaking at the proper time. You spoke the truth. You spoke gently. You spoke beneficially. And you spoke with a mind of loving kindness. That's why your conversations are going well. So there's situations where you've actually practiced these, right? But you didn't know you were practicing them. These are natural laws. They're affecting you whether you're aware of them or not. So in the past, you've been using these in certain situations, but you were doing it unconsciously. You weren't aware of it. And now what you can do when you learn this wisdom is bring this to the forefront of your mind and now start consciously practicing these on a daily basis, where you're practicing them day in and day out, remembering that it's going to be more challenging with your parents, with your siblings, with your life partner, with your children, because you have more craving, desire, attachment. But that's going to help you to clean up those relationships. So while the Buddha called this right speech, and that's how it's being translated, we might actually think of this as right communication, because there's more than just speech that we do nowadays. We have text messages, we have emails, social media, voice messages, we talk on the phone. We have all different kinds of ways of communicating. Because if you went into a job interview and you practiced right speech and you knocked it out of the park, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, I would like to hire this person today, right? And they get on your social media and they see your social media where you're harsh and hostile and bitter. You're not going to get the job, right? Because you're not practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech or the 5 factors of well-spoken communication, right? You would like to communicate with these 5 factors. Or say you're really angry and frustrated and you go over to your keyboard and you're pounding on your keyboard. It's not the proper time to be communicating, right? So you can take these speech that the Buddha is talking about speech and you can apply it to communication, because we actually do more than just speech these days. Instead of hitting send on that email, hit save, right? And come back a couple hours later and look at that email when your mind's calm and decide whether or not you really like to send it. Because once you send that hostility and bitterness out into the world, it's going to come back to you. It's only a matter of time. So you would like to communicate in a way that you're using all of this at all times in your text messages, your emails, your social media, your voicemail, all of that stuff. Okay, so this is right speech. You're going to find in this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, I go into a lot of detail on each one of these factors, giving you examples to help you to be able to understand how to practice this. But you're not going to always be able to reference your book, right? Like if you're on the phone with your mom and you're having a difficult conversation and you feel the frustration coming up, you're not going to be able to be like, Mom, hold on a second. I need to check these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. I'm getting really angry here. I need to figure out what I'm supposed to do, right? You're not going to be able to do that. So what I encourage you to do is to look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in the morning, bring it up in the forefront of your mind, and now practice that throughout your day. Maybe at lunchtime, you look at it again and refresh your memory and kind of see what is it that you did well and what did you not do well. And now you improve slowly but surely through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. But there's going to be certain times where maybe you're in a conversation, like maybe you're in a business meeting and you're needing to have a conversation and you can't look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. If you can remember this, to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, this will help you. You still need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech because that's the natural law, right? But this can kind of help you in rare situations where you can't quite figure out what the 5 factors of well-spoken speech are, because you'll maybe have 3 months or 6 months that you need to study this before you commit it to your memory. So if you can remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, that will help you. But you ultimately need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Then we've got right action. Here the Buddha says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refrain from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here he's talking about 3 actions that are harmful, that you would cause harm, and harm is going to come back to you. But he's not producing an exhaustive list. There's other things here besides these 3. He's just giving you 3 really big, impactful ones. Notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Well, if you understand this factor, what he's saying is if you cause harm through your bodily actions, that harm is going to come back to you. Because if you walked up to someone and punched them in the face, they're probably going to punch you back. Or they're going to pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family are going to attack you. That's the results of your decisions. But the Buddha didn't go through an exhaustive list here. He's just giving you 3 impactful ones, and then you figure out all the others. Because notice he doesn't say it would be unwise to drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees. Right? He doesn't say that because the airplanes weren't invented during his lifetime. He couldn't have figured out all the different things that would be unwise. But if you understand this step, you can figure this out. So you're not interested in causing any harm through your bodily actions. I like to point out here this one about sexual misconduct. We're going to actually explore all of these, taking life, taking what is not giving, and sexual misconduct tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to be teaching the 5 precepts. This is where the Buddha gives you a lot more illuminating language on all of these, where he's going to expand this for you and help you to more fully understand this through the 5 precepts. But I like to point out to you that this sexual misconduct doesn't include same-gender relationships. Oftentimes people think that maybe that's the case, but this individual who lived 2,500 years ago, he understood that same-gender relationships don't actually cause any harm because it's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other. Right? What you're going to see when he talks about sexual misconduct is he's going to talk about having sex with minors. He's going to talk about having sex without consent, like raping someone. He's going to talk about having sex outside of your relationships that you're currently committed to, right? If you start having sex in these kinds of situations, it's going to cause harm. So that's what he's talking about with sexual misconduct. 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults aren't actually causing any harm to each other. And if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, then you understand that it's never been a time in history where everybody had sex with the opposite gender, because that would be permanence. And we don't live in that world. We live in an impermanent world. So ever since the beginning of humanity, human beings have been having sex with the opposite gender, but with the same gender too. It's been happening ever since the beginning of humanity. And we can see this in the teachings of the Buddha because he actually talks about it. He doesn't teach anything about it. He just makes the observation that this is occurring, right? So it's been happening ever since the beginning of humanity. And he doesn't include it as sexual misconduct because it's not actually causing any harm, because it's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other. Okay, so we'll talk about this more tomorrow with the 5 precepts. Then there's right livelihood. A livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. If you choose to sustain your life off of causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. So here in the Eightfold Path, the Buddha says something very general and very broad. He says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. So that's just very general and very broad. But then he has other teachings that plug into this and help you to understand what he's talking about. So what I'm going to teach you is what's called the first fold of purification, to be able to understand this first level of purification of your livelihood, to help you get to a point where you're not causing harm in your livelihood. The Buddha teaches to eliminate business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, because these are all based on causing harm. So if you sustain your life off of causing harm to others, then this harm is going to come back to you. But remember, this isn't about belief. This isn't rules and commandments. He's teaching you a natural law here. So you need to be able to see that natural law for yourself by independently verifying this. So you need to take examples through your own direct experience to be able to see this is the truth. So let's take one. I'll show you how to do this, like substances that cause heedlessness. If I was standing on the street corner selling crystal methamphetamine or heroin or cocaine into the community, I'm causing harm. These people are getting addicted to these substances, and they're having to bring me money in order to get this substance. And now they're going out and robbing and stealing. Maybe they're selling their body in order to be able to bring me money. Well, now that I'm causing harm to this community, harm is going to come to me. Standing on the street corner like that, I'm very easily able to get beat up. I can get murdered. I can get robbed. I can get addicted to these substances myself. I can get arrested by the police. These are all things that can happen for me, right? So selling substances that cause heedlessness is very unwise because you're going to experience harm coming to you. Now, standing on the street corner and selling crystal methamphetamine and heroin and cocaine, it's illegal in most places in the world, but not everywhere. There are some places that it's actually legal to stand on the street corner and sell those kinds of things. But we're not talking about the human law. Human laws are imperfect because they're created by human beings. So there's some places in the world where you won't get arrested for that if you sell substances that cause heedlessness, but you're still going to experience harm because you're causing harm. So let's take, for example, like if I worked at a liquor store and I was a cashier at a liquor store, the government of the USA or Thailand, they're not going to arrest you for selling liquor and selling alcohol. But you're going to experience unwholesome results as part of this, because these are the places that more likely get robbed. And as people come in to steal money, you're now getting robbed. You're getting beat up. Some people get murdered. At the very least, you're going to have to deal with intoxicated clientele from time to time. And how can you get to a peaceful and joyful life and a peaceful and joyful mind if you're having to deal with intoxicated people throughout your day at your work, right? So the Buddha is teaching you this natural law, which is a much higher natural law than the human laws. The human laws are imperfect. They're laws of society. They're created by human beings. But this natural law isn't created by human beings. It's functioning at all times and affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. So if you understand the natural law of karma, you might decide, not interested in working at a liquor store. Right? And you might decide that that's unwise for you, right? So you can do that with each one of these. You can see examples in the world of how when people practice these, harm comes to them as part of that livelihood. Okay. Then the Buddha teaches you how to perform your livelihood in a way that you can be successful, because he's helping you to get to this point where you can have enthusiasm and ambition and motivation in your livelihood, where it doesn't even feel like work anymore. So he's teaching you to eliminate scheming, flattery, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is like if you were corrupt. So for example, if I was a mayor of a town and I'm leading this town as a mayor, I'm not causing any harm being a politician. But if I was corrupt and I was doing some backhanded deals, people are going to find out about it. And now 10 or 15 years into my career, now they're not going to reelect me, and I'm going to find it very difficult to sustain my life. So the Buddha teaches you to not have scheming or corruption. Then he talks about flattering. What flattering is having insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. If you've ever been into a store where you walked in and they were like, oh my gosh, that shirt looks so beautiful on you. It really brings out the colors of your eyes, and I can see the shape of your face. It's so beautiful. Wow, I have these perfect set of earrings over here that's going to go really well with that shirt you've got on. Would you like to come over here and see them? Right? So they're just trying to flatter you in order to get you to buy the earrings, right? And if you've ever been into a store like that where people treated you like that, you were probably like, ugh, I don't even want to go in. You might have just turned around and walked away, right? This is what the Buddha's talking about, because if you're giving insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you, they're going to see through that, and you're not going to be able to build up your livelihood to be successful at whatever it is that you're doing, because people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. They do business with people. And if they enjoy doing business with you, they will continue to do business with you, and you can be very prosperous in your career. But if you treat people like this, where you're giving insincere comments just to get them to buy things from you, they're not going to be interested in doing business with you. Then the Buddha teaches that it would be unwise to have hinting. What hinting is where you're not clear and concise about the work that you're doing. So say, for example, all of us are on a project team and we need to go brief the boss about this project that we're working on. We would like to be clear and concise and precise about what it is that we're working on, because now the boss can understand what it is that we're working on, and now we can all accelerate our career. We can all have upward progression in our career and grow and develop. But if we're doing hinting where we're not clear and concise about our work and what we're doing, we're not going to meet with success in our career. Then the Buddha teaches you to eliminate belittling. What belittling is where you're degrading and diminishing your coworkers, your business partners, your customers, your competition, people like this. If you're degrading and diminishing the people around you in your livelihood, where you're talking down to them, this is not going to go well for you. Where like maybe somebody asks you a question about your competition, and now you need to gossip and slander about them, and you think that if you push them down and you belittle them, that it's going to make you look good. But in reality, it's not. So if somebody asks you a question about your competition, all you need to say is things like, well, I'm not 100% sure what it is that they do, but this is what I can do for you. Here's how I can help you. Just focus on what it is that you can do for that person. So you don't need to belittle your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, your competition. You don't need to do that kind of stuff, and it's actually going to help you in your livelihood. Then the Buddha teaches you to eliminate pursuing gain with gain. What this is where all you really care about is the money. You don't care about the product or the service, the work that you're doing. You really don't even like those things. You're just out for the money, and that's all you care about. If you've ever taken this kind of job where you were just interested in the money, well, initially when you first took the job, you were probably really excited about it because you were getting this brand new fat paycheck. But then over time, that kind of waned, and now you felt bored and mundane, and you kind of dragged yourself to work each day because you didn't really care about the product and service. All you really cared about is the money. And initially, you were really excited about that money. But then the money excitement, that wears off because it's conditional. It's impermanent. And now you kind of drag yourself to work each day, kind of feeling bored and mundane at work. So the Buddha is teaching you how to get to a livelihood that you can feel great about. You can have enthusiasm, ambition, and motivation where it doesn't even feel like work anymore. And now you can do that job for the rest of your life and it don't even feel like you're working. You know, there's people like that are here in Thailand that are practicing this kind of thing. You might have run into some of these types of people. If you go outside, you might go see someone standing on the street corner selling mango and sticky rice, and they got a big old smile on their face. They woke up this morning, they went into their mango grove, they picked each little mango, put it in their basket, brushed it off, brought it to the market. They're standing there on the street corner slicing their mango, putting it on top of that hot sticky rice, pouring the coconut milk over it, and handing it to you with a big smile on their face. And they're collecting their little 40 baht. And they can't imagine doing anything else in the world other than serving you their mango and sticky rice, right? It doesn't even feel like work to them anymore. That's what you need to do, is find what is your mango and sticky rice. What is it that you're going to feel so enthused about that it doesn't even feel like work anymore? And you can't imagine doing anything else other than that particular thing. That the money isn't even important. Of course, you need money and you'll make money and you need that in order to sustain your life, but that's not the reason why you're doing the work. You thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing each day. That's what you would like to be able to get to. Okay. And you might not know what that is right now. It's going to take you some time maybe to figure that out. So if you're in a job right now that you don't particularly care for, or you're in between jobs and you're unemployed, this is something that you would like to pay attention to, right? And you'd like to really improve that. This is what the Buddha calls the first fold of purification. It's the first level of purification. The second level of purification, you're going to find it in our book series. It's in volume 12, chapter 14. So if you're in a job that you don't particularly like right now, or you're in between jobs, you might decide to take a look at volume 12, chapter 14, because that's what's going to help you to fully understand this teaching, to be able to improve your livelihood and get to a better place. Okay, so now just a little bit of a summary on this, and I'll see what questions you guys have. We talked about right speech, where we talked about eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech, because all those things are based in craving. Then we talked about the 5 factors of well-spoken speech: speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And this is going to help you to produce wholesome results in the way that you're communicating with others. Because while the Buddha calls it right speech, you would like to think of it as right communication, because you have text messages, voicemails, emails, social media posts. You would like to pay attention to all that stuff, making sure that you're using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, making sure that it's harmless. Then you would like to pay attention to your bodily actions, making sure that you're not causing harm through any of your bodily actions, right? That you ensure that you're not out there being harmful with the way that you're interacting in the world with your body. Understanding that the Buddha taught to eliminate taking life, taking what is not given, and sexual misconduct, but that's not black and white. I'm going to show you that tomorrow with the 5 precepts and help you to see more. And remember, he didn't give you an exhaustive list. You're going to need to see this closer for yourself. Then he teaches you to have a livelihood where you're not causing harm to others, where you eliminate business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. And then you eliminate scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. This is the first fold of purification. This is going to help you get closer to a livelihood that you feel enthusiasm, ambition, and motivation towards, that it doesn't even feel like work anymore. Because you need to find your mango and sticky rice. What is it that you're going to feel very enthused about doing each day? And you just so happen to be collecting money that's going to help you to be able to sustain your life. So any questions on this moral conduct? Looks like Yusuf has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Morning, teacher.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning.
So, I have seen you that you didn't reply on my comments on Facebook. Are you trying to teach me something? Like, should I wait to ask you till the maybe meeting we have 10 days ahead, or I can ask? What do you say?
Yeah, this wouldn't be the best time to talk about those things, Yusuf. If you would like to get help personally, you can communicate with me privately.
This question is about right livelihood, not about them, but I was curious if you were trying to teach me to have patience or something. So you don't ask right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, if you would like to exercise some patience, that would be helpful.
Was that your plan or not? Because I can ask my question right now. No need for patience.
I haven't seen any questions from you about a livelihood. But remember, when you've messaged or when you've put comments in the Facebook group, it doesn't always notify me. That's why you sometimes had to put another comment in order to be able to have it pop up on my side, because I'm not always seeing. There's some impermanence there with Facebook that it's not notifying me every time you put a comment in the Facebook group.
Okay, I will ask my question right now if you don't mind, and I will notify you later about those comments, okay?
Okay, let's see what you have.
So I think I have found my perfect job for me. This job, my job, like about sailments. When you make some sailments, you gain the money about the amount you did sail. So sometimes I do not sail, I am unable to sail, and I don't achieve any numbers in the company, and that makes me discontent. So my question here is, what would be the thoughts of an enlightened being when he works in sailments, and let's say, just imagine, at the end of the month, he did sail nothing, like zero. What thoughts would he have as an enlightened being? Would not have discontentedness in his mind.
Yeah, I can share with you that if an enlightened being was working in that field, they wouldn't have a zero at the end of the month, because they would be very successful in their livelihood. both in their relationships, but also financially successful. But let's just go with your example. If that actually occurred, they wouldn't be discontent, because what is happening in your mind is your mind's craving that commission. You're craving that money, and you can only be happy if you get it. And when you don't get it, your mind's frustrated or annoyed or agitated or whatever discontent feeling you're experiencing. That's because there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind. But an enlightened being wouldn't have that, so therefore there wouldn't be discontentedness.
So would he be at the end of the month when he achieves 0, he say, I didn't achieve anything this month. I will try more to see what problems I had and make it better the next month?
Yeah, if this is a livelihood that you're going to stick with and you think that this is your right livelihood, you're going to need to look at what decisions did I make and what decisions did I not make that led to me getting a 0 commission. Because there's decisions that you're making or decisions that you're not making that are leading to that, and you need to improve those decisions. So you need to look inward and figure out what are the improved decisions that I can make to now experience improved results with the financial result of what I'm going to experience at the end of this month.
Okay, thank you, love.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so let's move into the mental discipline section, where you learn about right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Because it's one thing to understand that it's important to speak gently as part of right speech, but it's a whole other thing to do it, right? So the mental discipline section is going to teach you how to train your mind to the point where you can speak gently every single time. So I'm going to teach you right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, because you wouldn't be able to practice this moral conduct without the mental discipline. Okay, so here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So he's talking about 4 things here that you're going to need to apply the effort to be able to bring in and cultivate the mind. Here they are. I've stripped away all those connecting words so that you can see what the Buddha was talking about. The first one, he's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. I'll give you some examples here. Right now, killing another human being is probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. You have no interest in killing a human being whatsoever. That's an unwholesome mental state. And you would like to prevent that from ever coming into the mind. You would like to apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming into the mind. Then the second one is abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. Examples of that is, let's just say you're in a current relationship and you're having craving to have sex outside of your relationship. That's going to produce unwholesome results for you. And if that's currently in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind. And then let's just say you're angry or frustrated or irritated. That's coming up into your mind. That's an unwholesome mental state. You're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind. The third one is produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There are certain wholesome mental states that you're going to learn about as part of this path that are not yet in your mind. They're outside of your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring these mental states into your mind. So for example, generosity. Generosity is a wholesome mental state that is helping you to train your mind to let go. Because when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll be somewhat selfish. You hold on to things. It's like my money, my car, my phone, my friends, my jewelry, my clothes, mine, my food. and you'll hoard things. That's what the unenlightened mind does, is it's like an animal, right? You're not an animal, you're a human being, but the unenlightened mind functions very much like an animal. So you'll tend to hoard things. So what the Buddha teaches you is to practice generosity, where you give and share with others without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. So if you find that it's very hard for you to share and you're somewhat selfish, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this quality into your mind, where you're willing to share with the people around you. And this is going to train your mind to let go. Then compassion might be something that you need to cultivate. That, let's just say you were indifferent, like you see somebody else that's having difficulties and struggles, and you're just like, I don't care. It's not my brother. It's not my sister. It's not my mom or dad. I don't care. Right? This is indifference. That would be somebody who doesn't have compassion. But on the other side of this, you could have worry and anxiety. Oh my gosh, those kids don't have food. What are they going to do? Oh, now you worry about them and you're having difficulties falling asleep at night because you're worrying about these children that don't have food. This would be the opposite side. You need to bring your mind to the middle, where you have compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind, right? Then there's the fourth one, which is maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. So loving kindness might be an example of that. This is a wholesome quality that you probably currently have in your mind, but it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development, because there's certain situations where you're angry and you're bitter and you're harsh and you're hostile towards others, and you would like to apply the effort to arise this loving kindness in the mind so that it's permeating at all times. And now your intentions, your speech, and your actions are emanating through this loving kindness. Right? So where you see that the loving kindness is not in your mind, you need to arise that in your mind and bring it to full perfection, full development, and fully permeating in your mind. Then there's something like sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of jealousy or envy. So you probably have sympathetic joy in your mind right now. Like if somebody met you, maybe you're back in your home country, and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand. You'd probably be like, oh, I've been to Thailand. That's a really wonderful place. You might decide you'd like to go. Oh, that'd be outstanding for you. They have massages. They have elephants. They have mango and sticky rice. Oh, there's this lady actually on the corner that sells mango and sticky rice. You might actually go give her a visit. She has really good mango and sticky rice, right? You might be really pleased for their success. That's called sympathetic joy. But if it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development, you're going to see certain envy and jealousy in certain situations. Like say you're at work and there's a new position that opens up, and it's a new salary, bigger office, more responsibility. You apply for it, and then maybe some of your coworkers apply for it, but they get the job instead of you. You might be jealous or envious. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this sympathetic joy into your mind more and more and more, and arise it up so that it's brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So this is right effort. And I'm just giving you examples here to help you understand how to actually apply right effort. But what is wholesome or unwholesome that's in your mind is unique to you. But you wouldn't be able to apply this right effort without the next step. Okay. So the way that I teach this right effort to my son is I taught him when he was very young, I taught him kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. That's what you're doing with right effort. You need to apply the effort to do this. But like I mentioned, you wouldn't be able to apply this effort if you didn't have the next step, which is right mindfulness. Here's what the Buddha shares on this. In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So he's talking about four things here: body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. What he's talking about is the four foundations of mindfulness. But let's just talk about mindfulness in general for a moment before we talk about the four foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness in general means awareness of mind. You're going to need to build some awareness of your own mind. What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? What are the things going through your mind? You're going to need to build that awareness, because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we don't have that. We just kind of plow through the world. I don't know about you, but before I knew these teachings, I was plowing through the world, knocking down the trees, burning up the forest, and I started smelling smoke, and I was like, who lit the fire? And I looked behind me and I saw all the trees were knocked down. I was like, whoa, who did all that stuff? And then I learned right view, and I was like, oh, it was me that did all that stuff, right? So you need mindfulness or awareness of mind. This is going to help you to cultivate the mind and then apply right effort. And you need to be able to understand what this means is awareness of mind, because oftentimes people are using this word mindfulness in a way that the Buddha didn't use it. So if other people use this word in different ways, that's up to them. What you might hear people say is, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table, right? That's not the way that the Buddha is teaching you about mindfulness. They're just replacing the word careful with mindful. What the Buddha is teaching you is awareness of mind, that you need to have this awareness of what's going on in your own mind. So again, if other people use it in different ways, that's on them. But you would like to come to the understanding of how the Buddha used it more and more, because that's what's going to help you to be able to practice it. More specifically, you need to know the four foundations of mindfulness. That's what the Buddha is teaching you here. To have awareness of the bodily sensations. What he means by this is the early warning system that is alerting you that you're about to get angry or sad or frustrated or shy or embarrassed or feeling guilt or shame or some other discontent feeling. There's some early warning system here. There's bodily sensations that are occurring that you can be aware of. And this gives you the opportunity to apply right effort and cut that off and let it go. So with something like anger, it's going to be tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. If you're aware of this right now and you can remember that you've experienced this, that's your awareness of the bodily sensations. You need to be aware of that. Every single time you're getting ready to experience discontentedness, there's going to be these bodily sensations that are occurring associated with this. So you're going to need to be aware of that arising of the bodily sensations so you can cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. You're not suppressing your feelings or repressing them. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. It hasn't even become a feeling yet. It's still in the bodily sensations. The way that you can think about this is that if you were taking a boat from Canada to the UK and you were out in the middle of the sea, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets into the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. You've got to get the water out. So you would like to prevent the water from ever getting into the boat. The same thing is true. You'd like to prevent the anger from ever coming into the mind. Because if you can prevent it from coming into the mind, you've preserved your mind. You've protected the mind. You've put a guard in place where you've guarded the mind. So the bodily sensations is something you're going to need to be aware of that you may or may not even be aware of right now. It's an early warning system alerting you that you're about to become discontent. The pleasant feelings, the painful feelings, and the neither painful nor pleasant, they all have them. And you're going to need to become aware of them more and more and more. If you miss it as a bodily sensation and you don't cut it off there, it's then going to become a feeling. This is where your mind becomes angry or frustrated, right? And now the mind's got that anger or frustration. And if you missed it as a bodily sensation, go ahead and cut it off as a feeling, because you're not going to be able to develop this overnight. It's going to take you time to develop this, and sometimes you're going to miss it as a bodily sensation. But more and more, you'd like to catch it as a bodily sensation. But if you miss it there, cut it off as a feeling, because if you don't cut it off there, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. The condition of your mind is where you're grumpy or irritable or frustrated for several minutes, several hours, or several days. Have you ever been grumpy or irritable for several days or maybe like a week or so? Of course you have, right? I know you have because you didn't understand this, right? You were walking around grumpy and irritable for a few days or a week or so, right? What's that? If it was more than a second, you experienced the condition of the mind. Yes, that's the condition of the mind, right? So if you experience this, if you noticed it there, you would like to cut it off and let it go. You missed it as a bodily sensation. You missed it as a feeling. Now it's affecting the condition of your mind, and you'd like to get rid of that. Because as long as you allow your mind to stay wired this way, it's going to keep doing that over and over and over again. So even if it was 4 hours, it's miserable to experience that 4 hours, right? And you'd like to stomp that out and get rid of it. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is to cut it off at the bodily sensations. Because if you don't cut it off there, it's going to become a feeling. And if you don't cut it off there, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. And if you don't cut it off at the condition of your mind, it's going to feed what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in your mind. For example, the 10 fetters. I introduced those to you yesterday. Those are all individual mental objects. And you're going to need to be aware of the symptoms of those mental objects. As they're arising in your mind, you're going to need to be aware of those. So this is called right mindfulness, where the Buddha is showing you this life cycle that your discontentedness is going to take so that you can get ahead of it. Because the bodily sensations are kind of like, I'm about to get angry. I'm about to get angry. I'm about to get angry. The bodily sensations are showing you that, and you apply right after it, and you say, nope, not going to let you do that. And you cut it off and let it go. Because otherwise, your mind's going to stay wired that way. Okay, so this is right mindfulness. It's going to help you to apply right effort. But you wouldn't be able to practice right mindfulness without the next one, which is right concentration. Right concentration, I'm going to teach it to you, but here are the words of the Buddha where he's actually describing what's called the jhanas. The jhanas are 4 preliminary phases that your mind goes through before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. This is the results of having put together all the factors of the Eightfold Path, that you're going to notice these enhanced qualities of mind that are starting to be experienced. I'm not going to read this to you because this is the results of having practiced all of the Eightfold Path. What I'm going to show you is what the Buddha actually taught of how to practice right concentration. That's what I have here. There's 2 things that you need to do in order to practice right concentration. You need to develop a daily meditation practice and practice singleness of mind in your day-to-day life. This is how you practice right concentration. So your meditation practice is breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. You need to build these up to about 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes. And this can sound like a lot for a new person that's just learning this, but there's probably unbeneficial things in your life that you could strip away, and it'll actually give you more time to actually focus on meditation. So it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up your meditation practice like this. This afternoon, I'm going to be teaching you more about meditation. That's why we have it scheduled for this afternoon, because you need to know about how to really practice these meditations and build up your practice so you can build that concentration and focus. Then you would like to practice singleness of mind. Singleness of mind in your daily life is to practice one thing at a time. Where right now, if you're doing multitasking, your mind actually can't multitask. It's impossible. But oftentimes people think that they can. Multitasking wasn't a big deal until like the 1960s. In the 1960s, when computers came out, computers can multitask because it's a machine. It can do more than one thing at a time. And human beings thought, we should be able to do that too. So that's where multitasking started coming out. But you're not really multitasking. You're doing something for 3 to 5 seconds, and then you're switching to something else for 5 seconds or 8 seconds. Then you're switching to something else for 10 seconds. Your mind's switching around from thing to thing to thing like this. So if you're talking on the phone, if you're talking on the phone, you're watching TV and you're eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all 3 of those things at one time. You're talking on the phone for a few seconds. You're watching TV for a few seconds. You're eating your sandwich for a few seconds. And that's why when you get off the phone, you can't even remember what you talked about because you're kind of racing around like this. And now this conversation that could have been 15 or 20 minutes, it ended up being 45 minutes or an hour. So you think you're actually being more productive, but you're actually not, because it's taking you more time to have this conversation. And then you probably said things that you wish you wouldn't have said and you regret. And now you've got to call back. You've got to apologize. You got to do all these other things. Or maybe you even agreed to do something and you need to call that person back and say, hey, I know I agreed to do something, but I forget. What was it again? Right? So you're actually spending more time where the mind thinks that you're actually accomplishing more, but you're really not. So you'd like to just do one thing at a time and focus the mind. So if you've ever been to like a racetrack where the horses, you might have seen that they race around a racetrack. And if you've ever gone to the barn and you see them in the barn, they can't calm down. They're really hyped up, right? This is the same thing with your mind. If you go to work each day and you're racing around, when you get home, you'll find it very difficult to relax. You'll have stress and anxiety in your mind. But if you can do just one thing at a time, you can bring your focus and your wisdom to whatever it is that you're doing, making wise decisions, and now it'll produce wholesome results for yourself. So if you're, say, washing dishes, you would like to just wash dishes. But if you notice that your mind's wandering, you would like to cut that off and let it go and come back to the dishes. Or if you're in a business meeting thinking about your trip to Thailand and it's 3 months from now, you would like to cut that off and let it go and be like, no, I need to focus on this business meeting. This is where my results are going to be. I need to perform well for my job, right? No need to think about your trip to Thailand. So you like to just do one thing at a time. This is called singleness of mind. And you'll notice that it's going to produce wholesome results for you. Because remember, the Buddha is teaching you the natural law here. There's people that didn't understand singleness of mind, and they're actually dead right now because they experienced unwholesome results because they weren't practicing singleness of mind. Because if you're walking down the street talking on the phone and you're not aware that you just walked into the street and the green light was going and a car whack, and now you're dead. There's people that are dead right now because they didn't understand to practice singleness of mind. So you'd like to just do one thing at a time, and this is going to hone your mind. It's going to produce more concentration and focus. One of the ways you might think about it is if you had a piece of wood and a steel rod and you were grinding that steel rod back and forth, initially it's going to bounce around a lot because there's not a groove there. So your mind's going to bounce around a lot when you first start. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth on the piece of wood, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove. It's going to pop out every once in a while, but you're going to notice that it popped out and you're going to bring it right back to that groove. But if you get this groove going really deep, eventually you've got such a deep groove here that it never pops out. And that's the way you can practice when you get to right concentration, that your mind is just always focused. It's always concentrated, right? And this is how you develop this right concentration and this mindfulness so that you can then apply right effort and eliminate these unwholesome qualities that are in your mind and cultivate the wholesome qualities, okay? So this is right concentration. So just to summarize that, right effort is to take initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to do this. It's not just going to happen naturally. Things don't just naturally fall away. You're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome. What's going to help you with that is your mindfulness, your awareness of mind. And more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, paying attention to the bodily sensations, that early warning system that's alerting you that you're about to become discontent. Then there's the feelings, there's the condition of the mind, and then there's the mental objects. You're going to need to build that awareness of mind. And what's going to help you with that is right concentration, where you're practicing meditation and you're practicing singleness of mind in your day-to-day life, just doing one thing at a time. And as you put together this Eightfold Path more and more and more, you're going to start experiencing the jhanas. These are 4 preliminary phases that your mind's going to go through where you experience enhanced qualities of mind. And I'll teach you these another time because you need to know those. But this is just a foundational course where you need to know the Eightfold Path. And that's why we're focused on that. So any questions on the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path? No questions? Okay, let me see what we've got online here. Okay, I don't see any questions online either. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a break for lunch so that you guys can get some food. And when we come back from lunch, I'm going to share with you guys meditation, helping you guys to understand the ins and outs of breathing mindfulness meditation, because that's part of building up your practice. And we're going to do meditation together as well. So are you guys okay coming back at 1:30? That's a little bit less than an hour and a half. I know I said that I was going to give you guys an hour and a half each day, but is there anyone who's attached to an hour and a half? Anyone craving it? Nobody? You guys are okay? See, you guys just verified the third noble truth. When you don't have craving, desire, attachment, you don't have any discontentedness. Whereas if you were craving an hour and a half and I was only giving you an hour and 25 minutes, you'd be angry and frustrated, right? But you're not craving it. So therefore, you're not discontent, right? Perfect, right? All right. So enjoy your lunch and I'll see you guys afterwards. Okay. All right. You're welcome.